My name is Daniel. At least that's the name I've been using for the past 12 years.
I'm 51 now. I live in a place where no one knows who I used to be, and that wasn't an accident. At 39, I legally erased my name. Not as a joke, not as a nickname. I went through the paperwork, signed the forms, stood in front of a clerk who barely looked up, and became someone else. What stayed with me wasn't the act itself. It was what came after. No one asked why.
I want to be clear about something from the start. This isn't a story about crime. It isn't about running from the law. And it isn't about starting over because life was exciting somewhere else. This is a story about what happens when staying becomes heavier than leaving, about the slow, quiet way a person can disappear long before they actually go. Before everything changed, my life looked fine from the outside. I had a stable job, a routine, a name people recognized. I showed up, I paid my bills, I didn't cause problems. Most people would have said I was doing well enough, and that was the problem. Enough slowly replaced alive. I didn't wake up one day wanting to erase my name. That thought comes much later. What happened first was smaller, almost invisible. I started explaining myself less, sharing less, correcting people less when they misunderstood me. At work, I became the reliable one, the one who didn't complain. In relationships, I learned to agree just to keep things smooth. In my family, I became the version of myself that caused the least friction. None of it felt dramatic in the moment. It just felt easier. Over time, I noticed something unsettling. People talked about me as if I wasn't in the room, made decisions assuming I would adapt, spoke for me without checking if they were right, and I let it happen. The strange thing about losing yourself slowly is that no one notices, not even you. There's no clear breaking point, just a series of small accommodations that add up to silence. That's when I realized something I still carry with me today. No one announces when a person begins to vanish. The more I accepted being overlooked, the more invisible I became, until my name itself started to feel like it belonged to someone I no longer recognized. It wasn't painful all at once. It was dull, like wearing clothes that don't quite fit but never taking them off. By the time I was 39, I understood something I'd been avoiding for years. If I stayed where I was, with the same name, the same expectations, the same version of myself, I would eventually disappear entirely, not physically, but internally. Changing my name didn't feel bold. It felt inevitable. I remember sitting in that government office, holding the paperwork in my hands, my old name written at the top, a blank line underneath, waiting for the new one. I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel scared. I felt relieved in a quiet, unsettling way. The kind of relief you feel when you finally admit something you've known for a long time. When the clerk asked me to confirm the change, her voice was flat. Routine. She didn't ask why. She didn't look surprised. She just stamped the document and slid it back across the counter. And that was it. I walked out with a different name and the same body, the same memories, the same past. That night, I tried saying my new name out loud. It sounded unfamiliar, almost borrowed. Starting over didn't magically fix anything. No one tells you that part. The first months felt lighter. There was freedom in not being recognized, in not carrying old expectations into every room. But there was also loneliness, because when no one knows who you were, no one understands what shaped you. I learned that starting a second life means learning when to stay silent again, this time by choice. You don't correct stories that don't include you. You don't explain memories no one can verify. Sometimes someone would ask about my past, where I grew up, who my family was, and I would give vague answers, not lies, just incomplete truths. There's a cost to that, a quiet one. You don't miss your old name exactly. You miss the version of yourself that existed before you had to protect who you were becoming. And here's the part I didn't expect. No one from my old life came looking for me, not because they couldn't, but because I had already disappeared long before the name change. That's what still stays with me. If you're listening to this and thinking, I would never do something like that, I understand, but erasing your name isn't the only way people disappear. Some do it by staying silent in marriages, some by shrinking at work, some by becoming who everyone else needs instead of who they are. You don't have to leave your country to leave yourself behind. You don't have to change your name to stop recognizing who you are. I don't regret my decision, but I also don't romanticize it. This life isn't better, it's just more honest. And sometimes honesty comes at the cost of familiarity. This is who I was before this life, and this is what it took to let that version of me go. If this story felt familiar in any way, you're not alone. And if you want to hear more stories like this, quiet, real, and human, consider subscribing. Because some lives don't end, they just become something else.